The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by any species in the known universe. Its walls stretched upward for nearly a mile, carved from living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. 17 different species sat in the circular chamber, each delegation positioned on floating platforms that rose and fell according to their status. At the very bottom, barely above the floor, sat the human delegation. Ambassador Linda Morrison had served humanity for 32 years. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her face showed the lines of countless negotiations, countless disappointments, and countless moments of swallowed pride. Beside her stood Captain Daniel Hartley, a tall man with broad shoulders and steady eyes. He commanded the small fleet of diplomatic vessels that had brought them here, and he had learned long ago to keep his emotions hidden. High Arbiter Vexolin raised his four-fingered hand, and the chamber fell silent. He was a Corvian, an ancient species with compound eyes and chitinous skin that clicked when he moved. His people had ruled this council for 2,000 years, and they had never once considered any other species their equal. "Motion has been presented," Vexolin announced. His natural language was a series of clicks and whistles, but the translator embedded in the chamber walls converted his words into flat, emotionless speech. The human species has expanded beyond their authorized boundaries. They have established colonies on worlds they were forbidden to claim. They have built military vessels in excess of their quota. They have violated 17 separate articles of the Galactic Compact. Linda Morrison listened without expression. She had heard these accusations before. She knew what was coming. The Therian delegate rose from his platform. His species resembled massive serpents, with iridescent scales that shimmered in colors humans could not name. Ambassador Keth Vorin was known throughout the galaxy for his hatred of humanity. He had spent decades working to limit human expansion, human trade, human everything. "The humans breed like vermin," Keth Vorin hissed. "They spread across the stars like a disease. When we first encountered them, they were barely capable of reaching their own moon. We welcomed them into the compact out of charity, and they have repaid us with arrogance and greed." Several delegates murmured in agreement. The Velkari, a species of amphibian traders, nodded their bulbous heads. The insectoid cricks clicked their mandibles in approval. "The Council demands the following," Vexolin continued. "Humanity will cease all colonial activities beyond the Kepler boundary. Humanity will surrender their shipyards at Proxima Station for inspection and potential dismantling. Humanity will reduce their military fleet by 70%. Humanity will submit to quarterly inspections of all research facilities. Failure to comply will result in immediate expulsion from the Galactic Compact and the seizure of all human assets within Council space." Captain Hartley's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Linda Morrison simply stood there, her hands folded in front of her. "The human delegation may respond," Vexolin said, gesturing toward their platform with obvious condescension. Linda stepped forward. She was small compared to most of the aliens in this chamber. The Therians towered over her. The cricks could have crushed her with a single limb, but she had learned long ago that size meant nothing in the halls of power. "May the first ask a question?" she said. Vexolin waved a hand impatiently. "You may. The worlds we colonized in the Outer Rim, the ones you claim we took without permission. Do you know what those worlds were called before we arrived?" The delegates looked at each other in confusion. They had no names, Linda continued, because no one wanted them. They were barren rocks, frozen wastelands, toxic hellscapes. Your own surveys classified them as uninhabitable. Your own regulations stated that any species could claim uninhabitable worlds without restriction. We followed your rules. We built our colonies on worlds you threw away. "The regulations have been updated," Keth Vorin snapped. "Those worlds now fall under Council jurisdiction." "Updated after we made them valuable," Linda said quietly. "After we spent 50 years turning poison into paradise. After we lost thousands of lives learning how to survive in places you deemed worthless." She looked around the chamber slowly. Her eyes moved from delegate to delegate, and most of them looked away. "We came to the stars with open hands," she said. "We asked for nothing but the chance to exist alongside you. We were grateful for every scrap of knowledge you shared, every trade route you allowed us to use, every seat at the table you grudgingly offered. We worked harder than any other species to prove ourselves worthy of your respect." Her voice grew stronger. "And what did we receive in return? Quotas that limited our growth. Restrictions that hampered our development. Suspicion that poisoned every interaction. We were never your equals. We were your servants, your laborers, your convenient excuse for every problem you did not want to solve yourselves." Vexolin's compound eyes narrowed. "You speak out of turn, Ambassador." "The Council has made its decision, and I will make mine," Linda said. She turned to Captain Hartley and nodded once. He pressed a small device on his wrist. Somewhere in orbit above the Council world, 100 human ships received a signal. Their engines began to power up. "What is this?" Kethforin demanded. "What are you doing?" "We will not fight you," Linda said calmly. "We will not beg. We will not negotiate terms that strip away everything we have built. We will simply leave." The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Vexolin raised his hand for silence. "Leave. You cannot leave. You are bound by the compact. Your species signed the Treaty of Membership 300 years ago. Treaty is a promise between equals," Linda replied. "We were never your equals. You made that clear from the very beginning. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Compact. All human vessels will depart Council space within 30 standard days. All trade agreements are nullified. All communication channels will be closed. All human citizens within Council territory will be evacuated." She paused to let her words sink in. "You wanted us gone? Now we are going." Kethforin laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping against stone. "You would isolate yourselves? You would cut off your species from the rest of the galaxy? You would doom your people to irrelevance and extinction?" Linda Morrison turned toward the exit. Captain Hartley fell into step beside her. At the doorway, she stopped and looked back at the assembled delegates one final time. "We gave you every chance to know us," she said. "We showed you kindness, patience, and hope. We believed in the promise of galactic unity even when you gave us every reason to despair. And you repaid us with contempt?" Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but in the perfect acoustics of the chamber, every being heard her clearly. "Remember this moment, Arbiter. Remember that we did not fire a single shot. Remember that we did not raise our voices in anger. Remember that we simply walked away. And remember when the darkness comes that you were the ones who told us to go?" The doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. For a long moment, no one in the chamber spoke. Then Kethforin began to laugh again, and soon other delegates joined him. The humans were gone. The problem was solved. The galaxy could finally move forward without the burden of that troublesome young species. High Arbiter Vexilin did not laugh. He sat in his chair, staring at the closed doors, and wondered why he felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. Something important had just happened. Something terrible. But he could not name it, and so he said nothing. Outside, human fleet began to move toward the edge of known space, heading into the darkness between stars. They carried with them 10 billion souls, and the dreams of a species that had finally stopped hoping for acceptance. They would build something new out there, something that belonged to them alone, and the galaxy would learn, in time, exactly what it had lost. 3 months passed, and at first, nothing seemed wrong. The Therian Empire threw grand celebrations across their territory. Ambassador Kethforin was hailed as a hero, the statesman who had finally rid the galaxy of the human pestilence. Statues were erected in his honor. Songs were composed, praising his wisdom. The Therian Emperor personally awarded him the highest medal of service, the Valkyrie. Consortium raised their prices on all goods that had once moved through human trade routes. Without human competition, they could charge whatever they wanted. Their profits soared. Their merchants grew fat and happy. The Crix Collective sent survey teams to the abandoned Proxima station, eager to claim whatever technology the humans had left behind. They found empty corridors and silent machinery, but they were confident they could reverse engineer everything of value. High Arbiter, Gexelin received congratulations from delegates across the galaxy. He accepted them graciously, though he still could not shake the strange feeling that had settled over him since the day the humans departed. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself the galaxy was better off. Then the problems began. Trade. Representative Zella of the Velkari Consortium was the first to sound the alarm. She was a careful woman, devoted to numbers and ledgers, and she had noticed something troubling in her reports. Human freighters had carried 40% of all goods moving through the Outer Rim territories. They had been willing to travel dangerous routes that other species avoided. They had charged reasonable rates and delivered on time. Now those routes sat empty. Goods piled up in warehouses with no one to move them. Medical supplies meant for the Crick's homeworld rotted in storage because no Valkyrie captain would risk the journey through the Kaldros Nebula. The humans had made that run 3 times a week. They had never complained. Zella presented her findings to the consortium leadership. They dismissed her concerns. They said the market would adjust. They said other species would fill the gap. No one filled the gap on the Therian homeworld. 3 orbital habitats suffered critical system failures within the same week. These massive structures house millions of citizens floating in the void above the planet. They required constant maintenance, and for decades, that maintenance had been performed by human engineers. The Therians had considered this arrangement beneath their dignity to acknowledge. They had never mentioned it in official reports. They had simply accepted the human workers as a necessary evil, like janitors or garbage collectors. Useful, but invisible. Now those engineers were gone, and no one knew how to repair the failing systems. The Therian technicians who attempted the work made mistakes. Power grids overloaded. Life support systems malfunctioned. Airlocks failed. 2,000 Therians died in the first habitat collapse. 4,000 more died in the second. The third was evacuated just in time. Its population crowded onto ships meant for a fraction of their number. Ambassador Keth Voren stopped giving interviews. The statues in his honor were quietly removed. On the council floor, Ambassador Talvix of the Meridian Syndicate addressed an emergency session. His species were aquatic beings, their bodies encased in water-filled suits when they traveled on dry worlds. They had abstained from the vote against humanity, neither supporting nor opposing the motion. Now Talvex wondered if he should have done more. "We have lost contact with Research Station Gamma 7, he announced, his voice bubbling through his suit's speaker system. The station was a joint venture between our scientists and human researchers. They were studying quantum rift phenomena, attempting to understand the tears in spacetime that appear randomly throughout the galaxy. And Vexolin asked impatiently, "Send a repair team." "We have sent 3 teams," Talvex replied. 2 of them are dead. The third has retreated to a safe distance and refuses to approach further. Without the human scientists, the containment fields are failing. The rift is expanding. He activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a swirling mass of impossible colors. A wound in the fabric of reality that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. If the rift continues to expand at its current rate, it will consume the station within 6 weeks. Within 6 months, it will reach the Verdani system. Within 2 years, it will have destroyed 3 inhabited worlds and killed approximately 12 billion sentient beings. The chamber fell silent. "Can we not contain it?" The Crix delegate asked. "Our scientists estimate a 12% chance of success," Talvex said. The human scientists had a 93% success rate with such containment. They had developed techniques we do not understand. They had spent decades studying these phenomena, volunteering for work that other species considered too dangerous. He turned to face the High Arbiter directly. "We mocked them for being primitive. We called them reckless and foolish. We said they took unnecessary risks because they did not value their own lives. But the truth is simpler. They did the dangerous work because no one else would. They protected us from threats we did not even know existed. And now they are gone." Keth Voren rose from his platform, his scales flickering with agitation. "This is temporary difficulty. We will adapt. We will develop our own techniques, will we?" Talvex asked. How many billions will die while we learn? How many worlds will burn while we figure out what the humans already knew? You speak as if they were special, Kethvorin hissed. They were nothing. Primitives. Barely evolved apes who stumbled into space by accident. Then why, Talvex said quietly, did we rely on them for everything? The question hung in the air, unanswered, far from the council chamber. Beyond the borders of known space, the human colony ship Wanderer drifted through a nebula of impossible beauty. The gases swirled in patterns that seemed almost alive, colors shifting from deep purple to brilliant gold as the ship passed through. Captain Samuel Drake stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. He was a weathered man, his face marked by decades of service on the frontier. He had commanded patrol vessels along the Varaxian border. He had seen combat. He had lost friends. And now he was leading his people into the unknown. Communications officer Maria Vance approached him with a datapad. She was young, barely 30, but she had proven herself capable in the months since the departure. Status report, she said. The convoy is holding formation. All ships report green across the board. We should reach the survey coordinates in approximately 3 weeks. Drake nodded. Any response to our hails? Nothing. The council channels are closed. We are completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. She hesitated, and Drake sensed there was more she wanted to say. Speak freely, he told her. Some of the crew are worried. They have family back in council space. Friends they may never see again. They want to know if we made the right choice. Drake turned to face her. What do you think? Maria was quiet for a moment. I think we did what we had to do. I think staying would have meant giving up everything that makes us who we are. I think Ambassador Morrison was right. She usually is. But I also think this is going to be hard. Harder than anything we have ever done. We are alone out here, Captain. Truly alone. Drake smiled grimly. We have always been alone, Maria. The council just let us pretend otherwise for a while. Now we face the truth. And the truth is this. We do not need them. We never did. They needed us. He looked back out at the swirling nebula, at the infinite darkness beyond. They will realize it eventually. They will see what they have lost. And when that day comes, we will be ready. Maria frowned. Ready for what? To show them who we really are. Not the servants they wanted us to be. Not the laborers they used and discarded. The real us. The ones who built cities on poisoned worlds. The ones who crossed the void when everyone said it was impossible. The ones who refused to give up, no matter how many times we were knocked down. He placed a hand on her shoulder. We are going to build something out here, Maria, something magnificent. And when the galaxy finally comes looking for us, they will find a people who have learned to stand on their own. They will find humanity at its best. The Wanderer sailed on through the nebula, its lights flickering like a tiny star against the endless dark. Behind it, 100 other ships followed in formation, carrying the hopes of a species into the unknown. They did not know what lay ahead. They did not know if they would survive, but they were human. And humans had never let uncertainty stop them before. 1 year after the human departure, the Galactic Council was falling apart. The Varaxian raiders had grown bold. For 4 decades, human patrol ships had held the line along the border territories, fighting a quiet war that most species preferred to ignore. The Varaxians were predators, a species that had rejected civilization in favor of endless conquest. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They simply consumed everything in their path. The humans had understood them. The humans had known how to fight them. And the humans were gone. In the first 6 months, the Varaxians took 12 colony worlds. They swept through border defenses like fire through dry grass. The Therian Empire lost 6 major settlements, their proud fleets scattered and broken. The Krix Collective abandoned 3 hive worlds, evacuating billions of citizens in desperate convoys that were picked off one by one. Ambassador, Kethvorin, was found dead in his chambers on the Therian homeworld. The official report called it natural causes. Everyone knew it was suicide. His legacy had turned to ash. The hero who had expelled humanity was now blamed for every disaster, that followed. But the Vraxians were not the only problem. The quantum rift near. Research Station Game 7 had consumed its first inhabited world. The Verdani, a peaceful species of plant-like beings, watched helplessly as the tier in reality swallowed their outer colony. 12 million souls vanished in an instant, erased from existence as if they had never been. The Council sent their best scientists to contain the rift. They failed. The expansion continued. Trade had collapsed across the outer rim, without human freighters willing to make the dangerous runs. Goods simply stopped moving. Famine struck worlds that had never known hunger. Medicine ran out in hospitals that had never faced shortages. The careful balance of galactic commerce, maintained for centuries by species who barely noticed the work involved, crumbled without the invisible hands that had kept it running. And worst of all, the old hatreds had returned. The Velkari Consortium accused the Krix Collective of hoarding resources. The Krix accused the Meridian Syndicate of sabotaging their food supplies. The Therian Empire, humiliated and desperate, began making aggressive moves toward neutral territories. Border disputes that had been settled decades ago erupted into open conflict. The humans had never been the strongest species in the galaxy. They had never been the smartest or the most technologically advanced. But they had been the peacemakers. They had been the ones willing to sit in endless negotiations, listening to grievances, finding compromises, building bridges between species that had hated each other for millennia. They had been the glue that held everything together. And now the glue was gone. High Arbiter Vexolum sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that grew more devastating with each passing day. He had not slept properly in months. His compound eyes were dull, his movements slow and heavy. The weight of his failure pressed down on him like a physical force. A chime sounded at his door. He ignored it. It sounded again. "Enter," he said finally. Dr. Zena Koroth stepped into the room. She was a Velkari scientist, one of the few who had worked closely with human researchers before the departure. Her amphibian features were drawn with exhaustion. "Hi, Arbiter," she said. "The Council has assembled. They are waiting for you." "Let them wait." Zena hesitated. "Arbiter, with respect, we cannot afford more delay. The situation grows worse by the hour. The delegates are demanding answers." "What answers can I give them?" Vexolin asked bitterly. "That we made a terrible mistake? That we drove away the only species willing to do the work no one else wanted? That we are now paying the price for our arrogance?" He turned to face her. "I have been Arbiter for 40 years, Dr. Koroth. I have guided this council through wars and plagues and crises beyond counting. But I have never felt so helpless. We are watching our civilization collapse, and there is nothing I can do to stop it." Xena moved closer. "There is one thing we can do." "What?" "We can ask the humans to come back." Vexolin laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "Ask them. After everything we did, after we stripped them of their rights, threatened to seize their property, forced them to flee into the unknown, why would they ever agree to help us?" "Because that is who they are," Zena said quietly. She sat down across from the Arbiter, her movements slow and deliberate. "I knew humans, Arbiter. I worked alongside them for 15 years. There was a woman named Catherine Price. She was a medical researcher, specializing in cross-species diseases. When my daughter fell ill with a condition that our doctors could not treat, Catherine stayed awake for 3 days straight. She researched, she experimented, she tried treatment after treatment until she found one that worked. She saved my child's life." Her voice trembled. "When the council voted to expel humanity, I went to Catherine and apologized. I told her I was ashamed of what we had done. Do you know what she said?" Vexolin shook his head. She cried. "Not for herself, not for her people. She cried for us. She said we would regret it. She said we would realize too late what we had thrown away. And she said that when that day came, humans would be ready to help. Because that was what humans did. They helped, even when it hurt. They hoped, even when hope seemed foolish." Zena leaned forward. "Catherine was right about everything. She was right that we would regret our decision. She was right that our civilization would suffer without them. And I believe she was right about one more thing. I believe that if we ask, truly ask, the humans will answer. Vexilin was silent for a long moment, and if they refuse, then we deserve whatever comes next, Zena said simply. But I do not think they will refuse. That is not who they are. The Arbiter rose slowly from his chair. His joints ached. His body felt old in a way it never had before. But something in Zena's words had kindled a tiny spark of hope. Very well, he said. Summon the council. We will send a message to the human territories. We will request a meeting. And we will pray that Dr. Price was right about her people. The message was composed with great care. It acknowledged the council's mistakes. It expressed regret for the treatment humanity had received. It requested, respectfully and without demands, a meeting to discuss possible reconciliation. It was sent into the void, traveling along communication relays that still functioned, bouncing from station to station until it reached the edge of known space, and there it stopped. Because beyond that edge there was nothing. No relays, no stations. No trace of where humanity had gone. For 3 weeks, the council waited. For 3 weeks, they received no response. Some delegates began to despair. Others grew angry, claiming the humans had abandoned them deliberately. Still others suggested military action, as if a fleet could somehow force the humans to return. And then, on the 22nd day, a response arrived. It was brief. It contained no demands, no accusations, no expressions of anger or resentment. It simply said, "We have received your message. We agree to meet. Coordinates and time attached. Come alone, Arbiter. Bring only those who truly wish for peace." "Hi, Arbiter." Vexolin read the message 3 times. Then he began preparing for the most important journey of his life. He did not know what he would find when he reached the coordinates. He did not know if the humans would forgive, or forget, or simply turn him away. But he knew that this was his last chance. The last chance for the Council, for the galaxy, for everything they had built over 10,000 years, and he knew, deep in his ancient heart, that he did not deserve the mercy he was about to ask for, but he would ask anyway, because that was all he had left. The meeting took place on an abandoned space station at the edge of known territory. It had once been a trading post, a place where species from across the galaxy came to exchange goods and information. Now it drifted silent and dark, its corridors empty. Its docking bays cold. High Arbiter Vexolin arrived with a delegation of 40 representatives. The Therian Empire had sent their new ambassador, a younger and more humble serpent named Telvex. The Velkari Consortium sent trade representative Zella and Dr. Xena Korath. The Crix Collective sent their prime speaker. Even the Meridian Syndicate had sent Ambassador Talvex, who had been one of the few voices of reason during the original vote. They waited in the station's central chamber, a vast room designed to accommodate hundreds of beings. Now, it felt hollow and cold. The delegates huddled together, whispering nervously, watching the docking bay monitors for any sign of approaching vessels. 3 hours passed. Some delegates began to wonder if the humans would come at all. Perhaps this was a trap. Perhaps the message had been a cruel joke. Then the sensors detected movement. A single ship emerged from faster than light. Travel, its hull sleek and unfamiliar. It was human design, that much was clear, but it looked nothing like the vessels the Council remembered. This ship was larger, more advanced. Its lines, speaking of technologies, the Council did not recognize. It docked smoothly, and moments later, the airlock opened. 3 humans walked into the chamber. The first was a man in his 50s, with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of heavy burdens carried for too long. He wore simple clothing, no uniform or insignia, but he moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. The second was a woman about the same age, her dark hair streaked with silver. She carried a datapad and walked slightly behind the man, her eyes scanning the room with quick intelligence. The third was younger, perhaps 30, a woman with bright eyes and nervous energy. She carried a small briefcase. "Hi, Arbiter." Vexolin stepped forward. I am High Arbiter Vexilon of the Galactic Council. I thank you for agreeing to meet with us.
Right.
The gray-haired man nodded. I am Marcus Gray, President of the Human Coalition. This is Secretary Ruth Patterson and Dr. Sophie Wells. President, Vexolin repeated. We were not aware humanity had changed their governmental structure. Much has changed in the past year, Marcus said simply. Shall we sit? They arranged themselves around a circular table that the station's systems had preserved. The council delegates on one side, the 3 humans on the other. The contrast was almost comical. 40 alien representatives facing 3 humans who showed no sign of fear or intimidation. The new Therian ambassador spoke first. On behalf of the Therian Empire, I wish to express our deepest regret for the events that led to your departure. Ambassador Keth Vorin acted without the full support of our people. His views were extreme and did not represent Ambassador. Marcus interrupted gently. We did not come here to discuss the past. Telvix fell silent. Then why did you come? Vexolin asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair. We came because you asked. We came because Dr. Korth's message spoke of genuine need. We came because despite everything that happened, we still believe in the possibility of peace. He paused. But before we go any further, I want to show you something. He nodded to Sophie Wells. She opened her briefcase and placed a small device on the table. A holographic projection bloomed into existence, showing a map of the galaxy. The Council territories were marked in blue, and beyond them, spreading outward into regions that had once been labeled unknown, a vast expanse of green. This is human space, Sophie explained. In the 14 months since our departure, we have established 23 colony worlds. We have built shipyards, research stations, and defensive installations throughout this region. Our population has grown by 30%. She manipulated the display, zooming in on specific areas. This is New Geneva, our capital world. Population, 400 million. This is Frontier Station, our primary military installation. This is the Wanderer's Rest Colony, named after the ship that first charted this region. The council delegates stared at the display in stunned silence. How is this possible? Trade Representative Zella breathed. Such expansion should take decades, centuries. It took centuries when we were bound by your regulations, Ruth Patterson said flatly. When we were limited to scraps of territory you deemed worthless. When we had to beg permission for every ship we built, every colony we founded, every step we took beyond our borders. Without those chains, Marcus continued, we discovered what we were truly capable of. The same energy and determination that you found so threatening, we channeled it into building instead of fighting, into creating instead of begging. He looked around the table at each delegate in turn. You thought you were punishing us when you drove us away. You thought you were putting us in our place. Instead, you set us free. High Arbiter Vexilon felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had come here hoping to negotiate from a position of moral authority, to offer the humans a chance to return to the fold. Instead, he was facing a civilization that had outgrown them in barely more than a year. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Nothing, Marcus said. The word hung in the air. Nothing, he repeated. We do not want territory. We do not want resources. We do not want revenge or reparations or apologies. Then why are you here? Marcus was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. My grandmother was born on Earth. She grew up during a time when humans were just beginning to reach for the stars. She used to tell me stories about the first contact with alien species, about the wonder and hope she felt, knowing that we were not alone in the universe. He smiled sadly. She believed in the dream of galactic unity. She believed that one day all species would learn to live together in peace. She spent her whole life working toward that dream, even when the council treated her people like dirt. Even when we were humiliated and restricted and ignored. She died 3 years before the vote that expelled us. I am glad she did not live to see what her dream had become. Ruth Patterson placed a hand on his arm, and he took a breath before continuing. But I still believe in that dream. I still believe it is possible. Not because the council has earned it, but because it is the right thing to do. Because giving up on peace means giving up on the best part of ourselves. He stood, and the other two humans rose with him. Here is our offer. We will help you. We will send ships to defend your borders against the Varaxians. We will send engineers to repair your failing infrastructure. We will send scientists to contain the quantum rift before it destroys more worlds. We will send diplomats to help mediate your internal conflicts. In exchange for what? Vexolin asked. Nothing, Marcus said again. We will help you because it is the right thing to do. We will help you because we remember what it means to be alone and afraid. We will help you because despite everything you did to us, we still believe in the dream of a united galaxy. He met the Arbiter's compound eyes directly, but understand this. We will not rejoin your compact. We will not submit to your authority. We will not ask permission to exist. We will help you as equals, or we will not help you at all. He gestured to the holographic display, still showing the vast expanse of human territory. You no longer have power over us. You cannot threaten us, restrict us, or control us. The only thing you can do is choose. Choose to accept our help freely given, or choose to face your problems alone. He moved toward the exit, Ruth and Sophie following close behind. Take as much time as you need to decide. We will wait. The door closed behind them, and the council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, arguing about pride and honor and the humiliation of accepting human charity. Some demanded military action against the human territories. Others insisted they could solve their problems without outside help. High Arbiter Vexolin sat in silence, watching the chaos unfold around him. He thought about his long career. He thought about the decisions he had made, the species he had guided, the crises he had managed. He thought about the day Linda Morrison had walked out of the council chamber, and how he had felt that strange weight settling in his stomach. Now he understood what that feeling had been. It was shame. He raised his hand, and slowly the chamber fell quiet. We will accept their offer, he said. We will accept their help, and we will pray that one day we can become worthy of it. No one argued. There was nothing left to say. 2 years had passed since the meeting on the abandoned station, and the galaxy had transformed. The Varaxian threat had been broken. Human battle groups, working alongside reformed council fleets, had pushed the raiders back to their home territory. The fighting had been brutal, the losses heavy on all sides, but the result was undeniable. For the first time in recorded history, the Varaxians had been forced to retreat. The border colonies that had fallen were being rebuilt. Refugees who had fled their homes were finally returning. The quantum rift near the Verdani system had been contained. Human scientists, working around the clock with whatever council researchers were willing to learn from them, had developed new containment methods that not only stopped the expansion, but actually began to shrink the tier. The remaining Verdani worlds were safe. The billions of lives that would have been lost were saved. Trade routes had reopened across the Outer Rim. Human freighters once again made the dangerous runs through the Cauldros Nebula, carrying medical supplies and food and everything else the galaxy needed to function. But now they were joined by Valkyrie ships, Krix vessels, and even a few Therian transports. The humans had shown them the way. Others were finally willing to follow. The old hatreds were healing, slowly but surely. Human diplomats sat in endless negotiations, just as they always had. But now they were respected rather than tolerated. The Valkyrie and the Krix had signed a new trade agreement. The Therians had formally apologized for their role in the original expulsion. Even the species that had remained silent during the vote were coming forward to build new relationships. On the anniversary of humanity's return to galactic affairs, a ceremony was held in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The chamber looked different now. The floating platforms had been redesigned so that no species sat higher or lower than any other. Human delegates were scattered throughout the room, sitting among representatives of the species they had once served, now treated as equals. High Arbiter Vexolin approached the central platform. He moved slowly, his age finally catching up with him. His compound eyes had dimmed, and his chitinous skin had lost its luster. But his voice was still strong as he addressed the assembled representatives. "I have served as arbiter for 42 years," he said. "In that time, I have witnessed great triumphs and terrible failures. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have guided this council through war, and plagues and crises that seemed impossible to overcome." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But the greatest failure of my life was the day I allowed humanity to walk out of this chamber. The day I stood silent while my colleagues voted to punish a species for the crime of being too eager, too hopeful, too willing to work hard. The day I let fear and prejudice override justice and wisdom." He turned to face the section where the human delegates sat. President Marcus Gray was there, along with Secretary Ruth Patterson and Dr. Sophie Wells. Ambassador Linda Morrison had come out of retirement for this occasion. Her gray hair now pure white, her face more lined than ever, but her eyes still sharp. "We did not understand you," Vexeling continued. "We saw your youth, your energy, your endless determination, and we mistook these things for threats. We saw you working in the margins, doing the jobs no one else wanted, and we thought ourselves superior because we were above such labor." He shook his head slowly. "We were fools. You were never the primitive species we believed you to be. You were simply different. Different in ways we could not comprehend and refuse to appreciate. You valued hard work when we valued status. You valued cooperation when we valued dominance. You valued hope when we had long since given in to cynicism." His voice grew stronger. "Humans are not the oldest species in this galaxy. You are not the strongest or the most technologically advanced. Your history is brief compared to civilizations that have existed for millions of years. But you have something that none of us possess. You have the courage to believe in a better future, even when all evidence suggests it is impossible. You have the strength to help those who have wronged you, not because they deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do. You have the wisdom to understand that true power lies not in dominion over others, but in lifting them up." He bowed his head, a gesture of respect that had never before been given to any species by a high arbiter. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity our deepest and most sincere apology. We were wrong. We were cruel. We were blind. And yet, when we called for help in our darkest hour, you answered. You saved us from the Varaxians. You saved us from the quantum rift. You saved us from ourselves." He raised his head and looked directly at Linda Morrison. "Ambassador Morrison, 2 years ago you told me to remember this moment. You told me to remember that you were the ones who walked away in silence. You told me to remember when the darkness came, that we were the ones who drove you away. I remember. I will remember until the day I die, and I pray that this galaxy will remember as well. Remember what humanity gave us. Remember what humanity taught us. Remember that the species we despised and feared turned out to be the best of us all." The chamber erupted in applause. It went on for a long time. Later, after the formal ceremonies had ended, Marcus Gray found himself on the observation deck of the rebuilt Proxima station. The station had been transformed in the past 2 years. Once a human outpost at the edge of council space, it was now a symbol of cooperation. Staffed by dozens of species working together, Ruth Patterson joined him, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. She handed one to him and stood by his side, looking out at the stars. "We actually did it," she said. "I keep expecting to wake up and find it was all a dream." Marcus smiled. "It's not a dream. It's the beginning of something new. What happens now?" He considered the question. "Now we keep building. Keep hoping. Keep working to make the dream real. Do you think we can? Truly unite the galaxy, I mean? Overcome all the old hatreds and fears and prejudices?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But I know we have to try. That's what humans do. We try even when success seems impossible. We hope even when despair seems logical. We believe in tomorrow, even when today is dark." He took a sip of champagne. "My grandmother believed in this dream. Linda Morrison believed in it. Catherine Price believed in it. All those engineers and scientists and soldiers who did the thankless work, who gave their lives to protect species that looked down on them. They all believed. And now it's our turn to carry the dream forward." to prove that it wasn't foolish or naive, to show the galaxy what happens when species choose cooperation over competition, hope over fear, love over hate. In the distance, a fleet of ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. Human vessels, Therian vessels, Valkyrie freighters, Krix transports, and a dozen other species, all flying in formation. They were heading outward, toward the unknown reaches of the galaxy, toward new worlds waiting to be discovered. Linda Morrison appeared beside them, moving slowly but steadily. Her retirement had been brief. The Council had asked her to serve as special advisor for interspecies relations, and she had accepted. Some jobs, she had said, were too important to leave to younger generations. Beautiful, isn't it? She said, watching the fleet disappear into the distance. It is, Marcus agreed. I never thought I would see this day. When I walked out of that chamber 2 years ago, I honestly believed it was the end. The end of our relationship with the galaxy. The end of the dream I had worked for my entire life. She smiled, and for a moment, she looked decades younger. I was wrong. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of something better than anything we could have achieved under the old system. The beginning of true equality, true partnership, true hope. She placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. We departed in silence, Mr. President. We left without anger, without violence, without demands. And in that silence, the galaxy finally heard us. They heard our dignity. They heard our strength. They heard our refusal to accept anything less than what we deserved. And they heard something else, Marcus added. They heard that we were still willing to help, even after everything they did. That's the part that surprised them most, I think. Linda nodded. That's because they didn't understand what it means to be human. They thought we helped them because we were weak, because we needed their approval. They never realized that we helped because it was simply who we are. She looked out at the stars one final time. Now they know. And now, finally, we can all move forward together. The observation deck fell silent as the three of them watched the fleet vanish into the infinite dark. Somewhere out there, new worlds waited, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that the dream of galactic unity was more than just a fantasy, and humanity would be there, always leading the way into the unknown. Not because they were the strongest or the oldest or the most powerful, but because they were the ones who refused to give up. They were the ones who believed in tomorrow, and tomorrow, at last, had arrived.